I would love you all to introduce yourself and then, a bit about your brand also, so that, a few of the folks who don't know you will know you as well. Maybe I can start with George, yeah? And then we can go across the board.
Hey guys, my name is George. I'm the CEO of Angkas, so I run a ride-hailing company for motorcycles.
Hello. Hi guys, I'm Rafi Vicente from Quadex. Quadex is a digital logistics company. We have two brands in the market, Shipping Cart and GoGo Express. So I'll talk a little bit more about that a little later.
Hey folks, I'm Bam Mejia. We run a social commerce company called Sarisuki. So we use online sellers, resellers to sell goods to their communities so that fresh items are more accessible to all places in Metro Manila.
Hi everyone, Dick Chang from DragonPay. We have been providing alternative payment solutions in the Philippines for the last 13 years.
So just on a lighter note, before we start, I have a name for this panel, right? And with due respect to the other founders and entrepreneurs, do you want to take a guess what this name should be?
Guess what, sorry?
The name for the panel?
The name of this panel. Is it Omnichannel?
I have a slightly different take on this panel. I think you all are the Avengers of Philippines, right? Of the startup ecosystem. If there's, be it Loki or Thanos coming, which is the winter, funding winter, or the slowdown, you are there to fight it out for the tech industry here. All right, so that was on the lighter note. To start off the first question, we did our research, right? And we found that 53% of the Filipino consumers, they interact with at least 2 channels before they make a buying decision. So social media being the most popular with about 80%, where 80% of the 52%, they go to social media and see how the brand is. They interact with the brand page. The second is mobile apps. Third is, mobile app is about 65%. And third is the offline store, right, which is about 52%. So they usually do interact with at least 2 or 3 channels that the brand has. So this essentially tells us how important omnichannel is and how important it is to ensure that the customer experience is great across channels. So what do you guys do to drive omnichannel experience on your side? Maybe I can start with Bam, and then we can go across the board.
Yeah, so I think omnichannel is really true. So just a background on Sarisuki, we're a community selling platform. So we activate online sellers through our app, and they sell to their communities. At first, you really think that it's all online, right? But the Filipino really still values a lot of offline. So while about 70% of our acquisition comes from the usual online channels like YouTube, TikTok, and social media, there's still that offline component that's very much important to them. So for example, so for example, we go to neighborhoods through local government units, right? So we try to hit at least on an acquisition standpoint, an online hit and an offline hit. And it's still pretty much 70-30 for us. 70% of our acquisition is online, 30% we still use offline channels.
Right. I'll have a follow-up question, but maybe
sure.
In the next, maybe we'll let Rafi go in next.
Yeah, I'll share a little bit about Shipping Cart. So with Shipping Cart, while it's a logistics service, the journey really starts online. So we launched our website in 2015. So it's a legacy desktop website. And then we launched our apps, an Android app and an iOS app about 2019, I think. And then we have other channels like social media, our chat. And at the end of the whole journey, when we do our delivery, so we have a face-to-face interface with customers through our delivery partners and delivery riders also. So that's kind of like not really an acquisition channel, but it's our face-to-face channel with customers already.
Maybe, George, if you want to go.
So we do a lot of jokes online. That's our marketing. Traffic is so frustrating. You know, it's a Filipino trait. Sometimes you just have to laugh it off, right?
Yeah, I witnessed this firsthand today. Yeah, I was supposed to read somewhere in 30 minutes, but it took me 2 hours. So I could have used those jokes.
Yeah, so we do a lot of social media, but we're omni-channel because our product is actually offline, right? It's transportation. So I think what works best for us is actually our bikers. So when you see our bikers on the road, that is the biggest awareness campaign. So we do basically that whole handoff from online all the way up to offline. And then everything else in between. The only thing that we don't do, unfortunately, is TV.
Okay, great.
In the case of DragonPay, we are really trying to market to two different segments. I guess DragonPay itself is more of a B2B2C company. From our point of view, the customer is actually the merchant and not the person who is making a purchase from the merchant. So when we try to acquire a customer, we're really trying to acquire a merchant. And when you do that, it's not as easy as posting an ad and then just having someone click it, because onboarding a merchant really has a longer process. So it involves an account manager reaching out to the person, you know, doing a conversation, doing a presentation. It's a more difficult, a longer cycle. However, we also have a consumer marketing focus, but we are not trying to get consumers, but rather just it's more of an awareness campaign so that when somebody goes to our merchant and they see a DragonPay logo, they have more or less an established sense of trust and familiarity with the brand. Although, again, we are not trying to sell directly to the end consumer or to the payer, but rather to the merchant.
So when you look at awareness, what are the different channels that you usually look at for doing the awareness?
When we are trying to onboard merchants, I think it's more of search engine optimization rather than, you know, a merchant randomly seeing us in Facebook or in LinkedIn. Because usually when a merchant wants to accept online payments, they kind of have an idea in mind already, and chances are they will go to Google or Bing to look for certain keywords. So it makes more sense for us to target them through search engine optimization. But for end users, that's when you really go to social media, I think.
Got it. Thank you so much for that. Maybe if I can just have a follow-up question that I was waiting to ask Bam.
Sure.
So let's say you have two business models, right? One is to grow your seller community, and
Yes.
second is, of course, you know, selling it to the end consumers, which is B2C. So how is your strategy different for the B2B side of things, or, you know, to increase your seller community?
Yeah.
And on the B2C side, how do you differentiate so that, you know, the audience would understand how to strategize on B2B and B2C?
Yeah, so I guess like DragonPay, right? We're a B2B2C. So our B2B is that we acquire online sellers to sell through our app. And then the B2B2C is trying to get customers for them so that the customers buy through their web store. That's why we call it Sarisuki. The Sari is the B2B and the Suki is the C. That said, there are many different things that we've learned. One, of course, is the channels by which you can acquire. So what we learned is that how to acquire saris or sellers is via Facebook and TikTok. And then how to acquire sukis for them is via Instagram, right? So that's one channel nuisance that we see. Second, of course, is the content. So you have very different content for the sari and very different content to the suki. So my marketing folks are here. They're the ones that do the great content. Raise your hands. Please give them a round of applause. There. So, yeah, so we have a team that does B2B content, and we have a team that does B2C content. And we're very choiceful what to say, and we're very choiceful where to put it out. So for example, if you want a B2B content, you say, libreng negosyo, free business, earn up to 50,000 and put it up on Facebook. If you want an end consumer, there's a sale of eggs now. Buy from your next reseller. So we've learned that along the way, and thanks to the team for building that up.
Sure. And how about at Ankas, right? how important is that real-time moment of truth when a customer is looking for a ride, and that push notification going at the right time. So what are the different channels that you use to communicate to your customers, and how does the acquisition work for you?
Oh, the moment of truth at the point of sale is very, very important. And I think for us, what's really helped a lot is when you give them that nudge at that point of sale, right? So we do a lot of promo codes. We also do a lot of incentives to the bikers, and that goes out in many different ways, through push notifications, or sometimes even SMS. So we still use SMS up to now. And the idea is to really just constantly give them reminders. I mean, essentially what we are is a jobs platform. And, where a lot of people see us as a ride-hailing app that provides transport services. But what we really do is we make money from commissions from what the bikers make. So for us, it's really important to incentivize that biker to go out and push themselves to do rides, right? And so we do a lot of communications around that, and that actually has been quite, I think the most impactful for us.
Lovely. So if I understand the business correctly, for you there will be one on the biker side of things, one is on the consumer side of things, and third is on the delivery side of things. So how do you differentiate between different channels, and what would be your engagement strategy for, you mentioned one on the biker side about customer as well as on the delivery side. How do you differentiate that?
Look at us as like a dating app, right? What we do is we matchmake all the time, right? So it's all about demand and supply. And we make sure that we optimize, at least for us, our focus is not necessarily optimizing for the customer, but rather optimizing for the biker. And we believe that once you empower that biker to earn a living and to make his income stable and predictable, then he's the one that actually comes out and looks for customers for you. Which is why you see a lot of Angkas bikers around, and that's by design. And until today, we've actually haven't, there's been a lot of requests for partnerships on the Angkas biker, but you don't see any other brands there. It's because basically that's kind of like our walking billboard, and that feeds into the entire, marketing thrust, if you may.
And what is the best way to reach the bikers, right? Is it like
through more engage?
That's the answer we were looking at. This is not scripted, guys. So but on through Mo Engage, we have multiple channels, of course, right? Is email the right channel, or push is something that works for you, or like you said, SMS?
It's always on the mobile device,
okay,
right? I mean, we do a lot of on-ground placements, but most of the billboards that you see there is really more for awareness. Where you really catch them is when they're making that decision. And every time they make that decision, like I'll give you an example from the customer side, right? They're always making the decision whether to take a taxi, take a motorcycle, or commute, otherwise, or even not commute, right? Because it's so traffic, I'd rather just have a beer and wait it out, right? So they're always making that decision, so you always have to catch them at that point when they want to go somewhere, right? For the bikers, there are a gazillion apps out there. And bikers actually know how to optimize their livelihood. So they switch from one app to another. So they're always that conscious decision of trying to engage them in your platform. So we are very granular. We look at our bikers on a per hour basis, and we treat each individual hour very, very differently. So that's how we make sure that our engagement with our service on both sides are always optimized. And we're pretty far from where we want to be. So there's still a lot of opportunity to be able to be more granular. Makes
sense. That's pretty good. So Rafi, coming to you.
All through Mo Engage.
Yes. Rafi, coming back to you. So you take care of the shipping business, which is the cross-border shipping. So how do you look at your customers, and what do you do to engage with to maintain that customer centricity for your customers?
So Shipping Cart is a cross-border delivery service. it's more of like a luho kind of product. Kasi our target customers are people who can't get stuff locally. Maybe they can get stuff abroad cheaper, like electronics, for example, clothing that's not available here yet, or sometimes even like vitamin supplements. So it's not really like an impulse kind of purchase. So the journey is actually very long. So when we look at our customer journey, when someone signs up, for example, downloads the app, actually about 50% will only ship and transact with us 6 months after. There's only about 20% who ship within like the first 2 weeks. So those people who will ship within the first 2 weeks have a plan. It's like, I'm signing up, I'm buying something, I want to get the latest MacBook, or I want to get the latest item there. So the flow for that is very fast. But the other guys, we have to like constantly remind them. It's like, hey, Amazon Prime Day happened yesterday. So we have to remind them about the sale that happened. Or, hey, why don't you buy these things from Japan or Korea? So we use different channels to keep them reminded about it. Because also, not all customers automatically will like respond to a promo code. If they don't have a reason to buy something from the US, we have to kind of like nudge them first. Hey, a sale is happening here. Why don't you try buying these products from this country, for example? So we kind of like do some inception marketing. And doing it on like Viber, SMS won't really work. So we have to do it on like Facebook, Instagram, social media, and other community channels. So that it's kind of like more subtle in the way that we nudge them to first think about buying something online and then using shipping cart to ship their items afterwards. So it's kind of a very long journey.
Got it. Thanks for that. So moving from the strategy to how do we measure whether the strategy is working or not working, right? What are those key KPIs or insights that you look at to really understand whether your strategy or your tactical campaign is actually working, right? Maybe Bam, if you can go first.
Yeah, I think I look at a couple of things. One is our funnel efficiency. Because in a life cycle of a seller, there's sign up, so download, sign up, transact, and transact till the end, right? I look at that a lot. So each transaction funnel, is it getting higher? Is it getting lower? And try to find insights on that. So I look at that quite often. Second is, of course, the cost for that transaction. So people call it differently, CAC, CLC, or whatever. Yeah. So am I efficient in terms of getting that person to transact or to start selling, right? And then lastly, we're still fairly young. We're 2 years in. I'm still looking at retention, at least 3-6 month retention. If that person or that seller is still selling with us and that basket size is growing throughout 3 to 6 months, because that's an indication that we're doing our job. So for me, those three things: funnel efficiency, cost to acquire, and the retention of that seller in the 3 to 6 month period.
Right. How about customer lifetime value? Do you also measure that, or it's too early for you to start doing that, or you've already started tracking that?
Yeah, it's in our purview. I think it's in our radar right now. But see, if you look at the CAC plus the retention AOV, it kinda, you multiply it, you kind of see it, and you know the cost essentially and your cost of goods, right? So right now we're just super focused on that. For as long as our unit economics make sense, and the second and the third metrics are humming to expectation, then more or less a lifetime value is pretty much to plan.
Got it. But you, George?
Well, this is where we kind of deviate from the traditional metrics. Our actual main KPI is when we get a biker out of the poverty line. So that's always been our KPI ever since the beginning. So for us, we always optimize for biker jobs, and we categorize them in several ways, whether they're full-timers or part-timers. And for us, our retention plan is at which point or at which month do these guys actually quit their jobs and become full-time Angkas bikers. We have about maybe 40,000+ bikers in our platform, and 100% of them are out of the poverty line.
Wow.
So we hope to be able to keep optimizing at that level, and we believe that that's the main, I guess, foundation. And if they're making money, means they're servicing customers. So that's really the metric that we continue to look at now. But of course, we still make sure that we have business as usual stuff. But ultimately, that's what everyone is kind of akin to. And we've found out that that happiness index actually works. A lot of people say this is like rich people problems, right? When you have a happiness index, but really it's the community that we built that makes our platform quite sticky. So we do a lot of events with the bikers, and we track basically the micro level, what's happening with them. Do they need tuition fee help or a laptop for their kids and stuff like that? So those are the different types of long-term benefits. So we provide house and lot and stuff like that. So we're trying to get our bikers all own homes at some point in time. So we have about a 5-year plan from the time that you become an Angkas biker. In 5 years, you would be able to own your own home. So that's really what's been driving our metrics these days.
I think that's so interesting, right? In the time we do business, we forget tracking happiness index. Thanks for sharing that. I think it's lovely to measure that and provide for so many families and trying to move them above the poverty line. It's amazing. So that's on the biker side, George. If we look at on the customer side, so when you are doing, let's say you are engaging with your customers, what are some of those key metrics that you measure from a customer perspective?
It's frequency. I think ultimately it's number of times they ride. So you categorize customers into, emergency use cases, which is one of the most popular use cases of Angkas is when you're late. And then those people that use Angkas as a choice, we're kind of like a mass premium product. We're actually more expensive than intermodal commutes, from trains to tricycles to jeeps. So if you want to kind of pay yourself, you ride an Angkas because it's point to point. You don't have to wait long lines in between changing different transportation modes. And then also in the regulars, basically, which is the ones that are more millennials. They really don't care about whether it's a car. These guys will never actually purchase a vehicle, and they like the whole efficiency around it. So the frequency is what we track mainly, and that's what kind of differentiates or segregates our customers from each other.
About you, Rafi?
I think nothing really unusual with the things that we track, like the subscriber acquisition costs, lifetime value, retention rates, churn rates. So I think they're all part of the normal monitoring metrics that we have. I think the important thing to note is that sometimes priorities change, like depending on what the business needs. Like during peak season, if we have some business issues, for example, we try to kind of like shift and change gears on what's more important. So there are periods of time where, for example, acquisition costs are most important to us, and kind of like being able to get the highest conversion rates for the lowest amount of money that we have. So that could be like one priority, for example. Certain times, NPS will be the most important thing for us, or CSAT rates. But all throughout the whole kind of like journey of the business, the delivery times are the most important thing for us. We want to make sure that always customers will get their shipments as fast as possible within the SLAs that we commit, and that will kind of like make sure that they're happy with the service afterwards.
Got it.
The other important thing I also wanted to share, like not really just on the metrics, but also being able to make sure that you're getting the complete set of information and data that you have. So it's also a challenge we have, like being able to ingest data from different partners, for example, to have a complete view of our database. When iOS 14 happened, it became a little bit more difficult to track on iOS devices. So we also want to kind of like continuously improve the way that we are able to capture all of this data back into our analytical database to make a little bit more more kind of like accurate decisions afterwards.
Sure. Moving slightly to an off topic. So for Robertson, if you've been the president at Moscom for quite a number of years. Also, you've moved completely. Being a founder, CEO, CTO of DragonPay, like what led you to solve that problem, or what triggered you to move towards starting DragonPay?
So when we started back 13 years ago, so 2010, there was really not that much things to purchase online other than airline tickets, maybe, and a few hotels. I think what really triggered the e-commerce wave in the Philippines, at least at that time, was the daily deal site. So everybody who's been around that time, you would hear, Cash Cash Pinoy, the Metro Deal, and the Ensogo. And I really think it was that first wave of e-commerce that really brought the everyday user to go online, because suddenly you can buy, a massage deal or a restaurant deal for a couple of $100. And it allowed people to try out things in very small bite-sized transactions, unlike before wherein, you only have to really travel in order to make sense to buy something online. And during that period, a lot of people wanted to buy things, but then the next problem was very few people had access to credit cards. So DragonPay came in at that specific point in time. We wanted to solve a very specific problem, which is how do you bring the mass consumer to go online shopping if they don't have a credit card. So we started offering things like online banking, cash payments, e-wallets. And of course, at that time, it was really cash payments that was the king in the country. Easily 75% of our volume back then was cash. And after pandemic, the whole thing has completely switched. Today, we're seeing about 75% e-wallet payments. Wow. Cash is probably only like 15 to 20% in terms of number of transactions. But in terms of amount, cash is still quite significant, even though they're fewer in terms of numbers. And that's because I guess people are used to paying small amounts now using their e-wallets, GCash, Maya, Coins, GrabPay. So a lot of the small transactions, they're already using e-wallets. But you'd be amazed that the amount, in terms of amount per transaction, cash is still quite heavy.
You still see that it's stabilized or it's not going down?
In terms of value, in terms of peso value, it's not going down. But in terms of the pie just getting so big that as a proportion of the entire pie, it seems like it shrank. Okay. But in terms of peso value, it's still right there.
Pretty interesting. So just wanted to check on, from a payment, alternate payment system perspective, how do you personalize customer experience for your users?
Well, the way DragonPay works is we basically present the user, the end user, the payer, the option of how they want to pay. So from our side, we don't really do a lot of customization. Okay. It really ends up on which particular mode of payment they want to choose. So if they choose the e-wallets, it will go through the e-wallet flow. If they want to pay through the banks, it will go through the banking flow. So it really depends on which payment channel they select. Got it.
Thanks for that. So, I'm coming back to you, right? I sort of know or understand from what I have read that there are some offline kiosks, a bit that you are looking at adding to give more flexibility for the users to either be a reseller or for the end user. So, how is that journey coming along for you?
Yeah, so one of our insights is that our online resellers, their biggest goal is to have an offline store. And that's what we're trying to enable them with. So they start off with an online Sarisuki store that's digital. And then we try to transform them into an offline store and now catering and having that brand visibility. So I guess that's the omni-channel approach, right? We start off with online. They sell through their web store, and their aspirations of having, and once they tried selling, they have a customer base of 20, 30, 50 people. We try to help them with their offline store, whether it's giving a booth, teaching them how to sell, telling them what products and how to do merchandising. So yeah, we're trying to complete that online to offline experience, and so far with our POC seems to be working. So let's see. Maybe we'll expand soon enough. Through your help too.
Yes, of course. Of course, we are always ready to help and happy to help. But when you look at the unified journey, right? Like where the customer is purchasing, do you also in your system you've built it the way you know where the customer is buying what from which channel, so that you can do personalized communication for them?
So we do have hypothesis. I don't think it's a solid truth. So the average Filipino shops more than any other nationality. They do shopping 15 to 18 times in a month. So imagine that, right?
Wow.
And of that, I think 2 or 3 is only online, right? So our guess is it would be 50-50 for our online sellers. But yeah, so we're trying to support that behavior because we do know that it can't just be online. My guess is that it's probably 40 to 50% online through our channels.
Wow.
And we're trying to complement the offline selling of fruits and vegetables and rice with their offline stores.
Right. It'll be great for you to tell the audience, because I was reading about it, how this idea of Sarisuki came about. I
Yeah.
know this happened during COVID. It'll be great.
So we're trying, I think we're working on an opportunity and solving a problem. So the opportunity that we saw is that the Filipino is very enterprising. So I'm guessing in this room, who has a side hustle? Probably 80-90% has a side hustle, right? So that's why we try to, and all of these Viber sellers have been coming up in the pandemic, right? So I'm guessing who here has been hit by a Viber seller in their community? Raise their hands. No one? There, right? So we saw that there is this yearning for that Filipino to sell across their communities. The second one is that I'm sure you know that the prices of produce in the Philippines is very expensive. We're the most expensive in Southeast Asia. The tomato that you're buying in a supermarket is 90 pesos. In a wet market, it's 70 pesos. Farm gate, it's, you wanna guess? I'll just say, we're out of time. 18 to 20 pesos, right? So by making it more efficient, having the seller in your area, we could sell that same tomato for 50 pesos, right? Still have a margin and give back to the community. So we're trying to bring that opportunity of the Filipino being very enterprising. There's that lack of access to high quality but low priced produce in a very inefficient market. And that's what we're trying to solve.
That's great. So we have about 2 minutes left. Any closing statement from any of the panel? Or maybe we can take one question from the audience. Anybody has a question for the panel? Maybe I can ask one last question. So I think you have about 8 million plus downloads, about 30,000 bikers. Like, what made you? You're of course too far in your journey that when you started. But what made you feel that you want to do this? Like, what was that initial trigger, which similar to what I asked Robertson, to start this? I know you have a passion for biking, though.
Well, that, and actually, it was the second time we got shut down. The second time we got shut down, I was actually at a party. One of my bikers was having a birthday and was showing me his new house. It was a little bit messy because it was under construction. And my lawyer calls me at like 10, 11 o'clock in the evening. And when your lawyer calls you at that time, it's never for a good reason. Right? So I answered it and said the government went to the Supreme Court and they actually shut us down for the second time. And I wanted to quit at that point, right? Because I had to keep a straight face. And that was a Friday. And then when Saturday, I was like toying in my head, just go back to Singapore with my wife and just be a male tai-tai, right? Just not do anything and let her work. But Sunday came and I got a call early in the morning and said, hey, go to EDSA. It's like, what the hell am I going to go to EDSA? And 30,000 of my bikers filled the entire Temple Drive.
Wow.
And that's when I realized that we were doing something good. And there was a hashtag, which is the Save Angkas hashtag, and it trended globally on Twitter. It was the #1 Twitter feed at that time, the hashtag. And you couldn't imagine that a small brand in the Philippines would trend globally. And that's when I realized that, yeah, we couldn't stop. And, no matter what happened, we'd had such a big family that came out for their cause, in support of us, and we couldn't let them down. And, the rest was history. That was back in 2019.
Wow. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your experiences and your views on omnichannel marketing. Really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
I just got a brilliant idea. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining. Maybe just take a picture.